So that was Toonami was my first, and then on the other side of the day was Pokemon. I would get up at 5 a.m. to watch it every single morning before the bus came. So I got my Pokemon fix in. Yeah.
So my question kind of ties into that since I write for Toonami Faithful. So you're currently voicing Bruno Bucciarati on JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Golden Wind.
Mm-hmm.
So you voiced like a few minor characters in JoJo before, but how does it feel now to be kind of a main cast member in one of the more crazier parts of JoJo?
Yes. Yeah, I think part 4 and 5 definitely stand out in that regard. It means a great deal. I thought that since I already played a stand user, they wouldn't think about casting me again. Even though I love the show so much. So I was really grateful when the auditions came through. I gave 3 takes for Bruno because I really liked him the most, and I'm so glad that they ended up putting me in. It's a trip to watch a show and then work on a show because you know all the lines when they come in.
All right, so going back to Pokemon, because you said you used to watch it a lot.
Uh-huh.
Were you excited when you got the role to play as Marlin in Pokemon Masters?
I was confused because I didn't know what the heck this game was. That was a very strangely recorded game because I played Marlin and then Surf Dude number 2 and Arm Wrestler number 4 and all that sort of stuff. It was just like 100 2-word cues. So like very simple utterances because it's a mobile game and they just have to all fit it on that thing. So I was more confused than anything. It was a lot of like, what is this line for? What does it mean? It was just, we have no idea, just say the words. So we made it work, I guess.
All right, and to follow that up, do you actually play the game, by the way? And if you do you use Marlin to hear yourself like speak through the game and stuff like that?
I played roughly 25 minutes of Pokemon Masters, and I said, that's good enough for me. Those gacha games, I can only do so much. I played a lot of Fire Emblem Heroes. That one I enjoy. But Pokemon Masters, it was like, okay, I know where this is going. I don't need to do it anymore. Yeah.
All right. Now, I guess I would say, how does it feel like to be part of the George Lucas universe?
So are you talking about
Yes.
Blockbuster?
Yes.
Yes. That was really fun. Matt Schrader was my resident. I was an RA in college on the cinema floor at USC. And he was one of the students who came in freshman year. I was a junior. And we had a friendship. He was really cool. He was a good investigative journalist. Then he went out and made the movie Score, which was a very good documentary about movie scores. And when it was time to do this podcast about George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, he said, I know you're a voice actor. Do you know any voice actors? I said, Max Middleman, let's do this. So we auditioned and then worked on that podcast. It was super, super fun. And enlightening because that was a lot of stories that I didn't know about before. Yeah, it was good. Did you listen to it?
I did.
You did?
Cool. Yeah. So I prepped for this.
Yes. Thank you very much.
All right, so last year, the much anticipated Furikuri Alternative came out. Have you watched the original Furikuri?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you feel being part of the newly expanded canon?
That was crazy. Furikuri I watched when I was freshman year of college. I went home with a girl, gave me this DVD. I was like, all right, I have to watch this one. I don't know anything about it. Wet and Cold, which I think is the best way to watch it, not knowing anything. And I had a blast. What a fun show to watch. And then when these new auditions came out, they were doing 2 more seasons. I was really glad I got to play a guy who slurped noodles for the entirety of the season. But I got good at making that sound effect, so it was worth it. That was weird also because that one we worked alongside Japanese, so it wasn't finished. So a lot of times we were doing the lines before the Japanese to storyboards. There wasn't any actual animation. So it was that one was quite a bit different than most anime.
So you mentioned Fire Emblem Heroes before, and of course you voiced Roy in that, and you also voiced him in Smash Bros. Ultimate.
Mm-hmm.
And in addition to Noctis and Final Fantasy 15, you've kind of just like gotten yourself into all these kind of roles in these iconic franchises.
Yeah, it's
so
been fun.
Before you even got these roles, were you kind of fans of like Smash Bros, Fire Emblem, and Final Fantasy, or was that something you got more into after you picked up the roles? roles?
So it's all different for everything. For Final Fantasy, it's a little weird because I played the wrong ones as a kid. I played Final Fantasy Legend 1, 2, and 3, and Final Fantasy Adventure because I had a Game Boy. And those were all not Final Fantasy games, redacted Final Fantasy games. So I was not familiar with the mainline series whatsoever, but I knew Moogles and Chocobos because they were in those games. So when I got the role of Noctis, I went and I played every single Final mainline game in order, and that was an unforgettable experience. And for Fire Emblem, I played the GBA one in high school, and so I was familiar with Eliwood, Lynn, and Hector, their story, but I didn't play Binding Blade until last year. I found a ROM that was translated. So I was familiar with Fire Emblem series, but Roy specifically, for Smash, I played Melee when I was a kid, and Dr. Mario and Roy were my two main characters. So that was insane to be able to voice him. I played the role of Alphonse in Fire Emblem Heroes, because everyone who comes in, they have to voice 3 things. They said, why don't you give Roy a shot? And so I just came up with a voice on the spot. I had 5 minutes and did all of his lines and then hoped for the best. So that was a life-changing 5 minutes.
So I saw that you got some sort of role in Shenmue 3. Are you able to speak about what that role might be, or...?
If you weren't able to find information, then probably not. Okay. Is it out yet? It's not out yet.
No, it's not.
Okay.
I was just curious.
Yeah, I play 2 people in that. One who actually has a name, and then one who's just this dude. It's full of villagers saying stuff, but I put a little Easter egg in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you played or familiarized yourself with the previous 2 Shenmue games in preparation?
No, I was Nintendo only as a kid, so anything Sega, anything Sony, I didn't play until after college when I got myself a PlayStation, yeah.
So you mentioned the motion capture stuff in Days Gone. Have you done any additional motion capture stuff that we're going to see going forward in the future in the last year?
Couple of, maybe one thing, but not so sure where that project is going.
Got it. And was it the same level of depth that, say, Days Gone was?
No, not that much. No, yeah, it'd be a lot more simpler.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Right. So you play the Master of Masters in Kingdom Hearts.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. How do you take on a character that's really outgoing, but also pretty mysterious?
Yeah, he was interesting because he's the only character I played who's my normal voice. I saw when the sides came out for that. It was a studio I'd only worked with once before, Skylark, where I played Edgar from Final Fantasy VI in World of Final Fantasy. So I wasn't as familiar with the studio, what kind of games they did. So this thing came out, it was just a black cloak. I'd never played Kingdom Hearts before, because it wasn't a Nintendo game, so I didn't know anything about it. And I saw the lines, I was like, he's kind of sarcastic and fun. I'm just going to do my normal voice. Let's see what the heck happens. And ended up getting it, and that was crazy. Then I went back and played Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, and sort of familiarized myself with the world, but I am no expert, not by any means.
So a long time back, Viz announced that you were Karamatsu in the Mr. Otsumatsu dub.
Yes.
And of course, that dub has not come out yet. But I was just curious, have you recorded lines for it? And, what are your thoughts on Karamatsu? Since he's kind of
Karamatsu. He's my favorite. I've seen all 52 episodes of that show. I think it's hilarious. The season finale for season 1 is one of the craziest things I've ever seen. He's my favorite. I think he's... you can kind of equate it to Friends, where all the friends are kind of bad people except for Joey, who's maybe a little bit dumb, but just nice. He's good-hearted. I think Karamatsu is exactly the same way, where he may be a little bit full of himself, thinking that he's so attractive, but he's actually tries to help, like he does with Ichimatsu in that episode where they're mistaken for each other. I'm really glad to be Karamatsu. And we have been working on it. I don't know where it is. I have no idea. I hope it comes out one day.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So, I'm a big fan of Soul Calibur, and I've been playing it with my family since middle school. It's just a lot of fun. One of my favorite characters is Mitsurugi.
Cool.
How was that experience voice acting Mitsurugi?
He was really fun. I I played that when I was a kid, Soul Calibur 2, because it was Nintendo. And I was big into Valdo back then because he was so wild.
Oh.
So this, I audition for Mitsurugi? I don't know if I auditioned for him. I don't remember. But I came in and it was a very vocally stressful because there's a lot of crazy things going on. But I had a lot of fun during the. They have a special name, but the skits that they do during the single player quest mode. Mitsurugi is a pretty funny character. You get to see his silly side in that one, so I enjoyed that very much. And then I played it for a night and got really good and beat the computer and then went online and got my ass kicked.
As one does.
Yeah.
So in Butter Snipes and Grumbles,
I love it, man.
you had your nose pinched because that's how you did it once, and that's how you do it 51 more times. Have you had any physically challenging roles like that over the last year where you had to do some extreme work with your voice?
Since last year, any crazy voices? Yeah, I think I learned my lesson with that one. Yeah, nothing. I wish I could say something, but no, it's been a stress-free year, thankfully. Yeah.
All right. So, how are your feelings of stepping into a role like Gendo in Evangelion?
Mm-hmm.
And do you have any previous experience with some older dubs?
With older dubs, yeah, I watched a lot of them. I watched Evangelion in college. I took a class, Japanese fiction and film. And the very last movie, we watched both parts. I didn't watch the show, but Rebirth and End of Evangelion. And it was mind-blowing, really, really crazy. So it was wild getting to go in and voice an iconic character like that. Gainax was really, really in on the process. Every single line was recorded and re-recorded over and over again to make sure it was exactly to their liking. So at least we knew that they were getting exactly what they wanted for that one. So we weren't working in the dark as we are on some other anime.
So you voiced Klaus in Valkyria Chronicles
Yes.
4. What was your experience working with Sega? And out of curiosity, do you have any favorite studios to work with?
Well, yeah. So that was Cup of Tea is the name of the studio, and they're the same guys who did Soul Calibur and Fire Emblem. They do all Nintendo stuff, and because that was a Switch title, right?
It was multi-platform, but it came to Switch.
Multi-platform, yeah. We recorded that at Cup of Tea. Klaus was cool. He starts out as a bad guy and ends up being a real softie, and I really enjoyed that. It was a pretty straightforward working process on that one. A lot of the times, like Nier Automata, which is also at the same studio, we went back and forth trying to figure out deeper meanings and all that sort of stuff, and we ended up re-recording a lot of it. But for Valkyria, it was just very gentle process. Yeah, it was nice.
Have you ever auditioned for a character in a show and ended up landing somebody else?
Every day, all the time. Yeah. Most of the time, let's say 95% of the time, you get nobody. 1% of the time, you get the person you audition for, and then the other 4%, like say for example, Mass Effect Andromeda. There's 300 characters. They're not going to send auditions for each one. You audition for the leads, and then they remember who they liked from the lead characters who didn't get the lead characters, and then they give you other characters. So I got to play a character, Ephra de Tershov, in Mass Effect Andromeda because of my not getting one of the other parts. So that's a constant thing. Anime is the same thing. They audition for the leads, and then from that they pick their entire cast based on who didn't get the main characters.
So is there any specific franchise, whether it be video games or anime, that you really want to get a role in, but you just haven't yet?
It used to be JoJo. Honestly, that was a big one for me. It's kind of weird. Me and Eric Mendes were talking about this. There's only so many franchises, and then when you're in them all, you need to figure out something else. So I'm kind of in that thing right now. I'm in all of them. I don't know, trying to think of one that I'm not in, like a franchise that I'm just not a part of. Like maybe Pokemon. I play that little Marlin character, but like maybe something like that. But I guess more anime. I'm not in a lot of anime. I'm definitely in more video games than I am anime. But I have a lot of smaller roles in a lot of these franchises, like Gundam and stuff like that. Sailor Moon, I have a line. So I don't know. Demon Slayer, I guess. That'd be fun. Yeah,
I'm a big Demon Slayer
that's in
fan.
Los Angeles, so yeah, I'd love to be a part of that one. Yeah, My Hero I got to be in too. That was one that was I was like, oh, I would love to be in that, and then the movie came along. I was like, oh my gosh, I get to be David Shields. So yeah, that was I'm very lucky in that respect.
Awesome. So I'm also a big comic book fan, and I also see that you also voiced Bucky Barnes in, what was it, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3.
That's right, yeah.
Was that a character you tried to audition for? Is that one of your like favorite comic book characters?
No, I happened to get that part because I knew Jamie Mortallero, who mostly works on a lot of Japanese games over at a place called Rocket Sound, where they recorded Final Fantasy 15. He and I are friends, and I guess they brought me in for it. I don't know much about it, and I don't know much about superheroes, unfortunately. So they just kind of directed me however it worked, and whatever it was, I hope it was good. Yeah.
So the way you described it, there's about a 5% hit rate. 1% of the time you'll get the role you apply for. 4%.
See, I have to be careful with you because you remember things. That's dangerous. The actual hit rate, what would it be? We audition maybe 30 times a week. So 120 times a month, and I book maybe 2 things a month. So whatever that would be, less than 0.5%.
So I guess my question would be, how do you steel yourself to apply 120 times a month? How do you get yourself up for that?
You forget about it. You try to forget. There's definitely a lot of close calls. There was a really cool callback that I had that I didn't get, that I had to fly myself out for, and that's part of it. The work of an actor is auditioning, and then the reward is getting to be in something. So every day you're just auditioning. There was one on Friday. I had 11 auditions before 11 o'clock that I had to do. Yeah, just it's what the game is. Yeah.
All right. So out of the 3 seasons in Furikuri, what are some of your favorite episodes from like the original, progressive, or even alternative?
I like the baseball episode from the first season. I think it's like episode 4 or so. I just think it tells a cool story, all encapsulated. I think it's a fun motif as it goes through. It's an episode that I like a lot. Yeah.
So you voiced Gendo Ikari in the Netflix redub of Evangelion.
Uh-huh.
That's a very iconic role.
Absolutely.
Was it like intimidating to kind of go in as kind of the new voice of that character?
Yeah, it was. Like I said before, we had our hands held the whole way, so we knew exactly what we were doing and what this character was going to sound like. It wasn't too far off from the audition that I sent either. But it was awesome. It was also cool working on an anime from the 90s and how different things were, that anime could be a lot more serious back then, and I miss that. We're in Isekai City right now, and it's a little dulling after a while.
Everyone has to be in another world.
Yeah, it's I liked it when anime could be scary, and that show is scary and makes you think.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of Borderlands as well.
Hey,
the
cool.
comedy in that game is amazing.
Yeah.
But I also saw that you were playing Reese, and you were taking over that role from somebody else. So
Yeah.
how was that, like trying to fill in that person's shoes in a new game?
The Gearbox was really nice. They're a really cool company to work with, and they sent me a copy of Tales from the Borderlands, so I got to familiarize myself with the role, and it was really fun. They flew us out to Texas, and that one, unlike a lot of Japanese stuff where you have to dub it and it has to be exactly the right length, so there's not a lot of improvisation. Anytime I had something silly to say, they said, great, add it, whatever. And so that was very freeing. So I really liked working with Gearbox. They treated us really, really well.
Sounds
I
like
got
a lot of
mug. It says, what does it say? The mug says, hot cup of talent. It's great.
What would you tell an aspiring high school actor or actress who wants to be a voice actor if you want to give them advice on how to get into the industry?
I think right now there's so much work out there, especially online. There's a site called castingcall.club that wasn't around when I was first starting, where you can get a lot of roles from YouTubers, animators who are making stuff who just need people, and it's a great way to get started making connections, which is the most important thing. So I would recommend that. I started with Voice 123, which is still around, but you got to pay money for that. So I understand that it can be prohibitive for some. But yeah, that one was $200 when I joined, and it took me 6 months to book my first thing, which paid me $100. But then I was able to form a career on that, based on that.
All right, so going back to Furikuri, as you know, the Pillows did the soundtracks for
They're
all
so
3
good.
seasons. Do you have a favorite track from them?
Man, I don't know the tracks. You just know it. That ending track is so good. That's when you know an episode's ending, whatever that one is. I love that one. It's just, there's something so nostalgic about it. Yeah, I love the Pillows for sure.
So this is more of a casual question, but when you're not doing voice work, what do you love to do in your downtime?
I love playing video games for sure. Hanging out with my dogs, and I've been playing piano for 20 some odd years, so that's always a fun thing. Yeah.
I think I already know the answer because you said you're a Nintendo guy, but how familiar were you with the Tekken games before they brought Noctis into Tekken?
Well, not familiar at all, actually, because, I'm not a fighting game guy, because there's so much memorization involved with that. But I'm not Noctis and Tekken, it's very sad.
Oh.
It's just Japanese, so I didn't get a chance to be in that one, unfortunately. I wish I could. Maybe I should just do the lines and then someone will nod it in.
They probably
I
will.
should do
Very,
that, yeah.
very likely, yeah.
Yeah, I should do that.
You played piano for 20 plus years. Have you ever tried to play piano in a game or animate anywhere, just get your piano work into your professional career?
No, it hasn't happened. That's a pretty, I don't know how it would happen, unfortunately. I think it's such a separate, music and sound are so separate in...
You wouldn't think there'd be such a wall between
Yeah, totally different. So yeah, we never work with musicians or composers or anything like that. That would be fun one day to be able to put. I've written quite a bit of music in the past. So yeah, that would be fun.
Is any of that up on YouTube?
No. It was on a site called The 61, which I don't think is around anymore. And then on Sibelius, I would write on Sibelius. So in the Sibelius forums, it's somewhere. But that's long gone. That's like 15 years ago.
All right, so you told me before that you did watch Tsunami during its original run. So now it's reversed. Now you're in Toonami. So how's it feel to see your voice in the block?
Well, it's kind of weird because Toonami now is super late, right?
Yeah.
Whereas back in my day, it was
11
like
to 4:30 now.
Yeah, mine was like 4 o'clock. You'd get home from school and then you'd be able to watch Dragon Ball. So I can't watch Toonami. I don't have a TV. So I haven't been able to see it. I just know it's out there, and every Saturday people tweet me and say, "Oh, this happened in Boruto," and you go, "Oh, okay, cool." So it's pretty surreal. Yeah, I'm unable to participate, unfortunately.
So you're in the one bang zoom dub of Dragon Ball Super that was made
The
for a while.
weird ass India dub, yeah. It's crazy.
So how was that? Considering that there was already an established dub for that existing.
It was very strange. We were all very confused, but we did it, and it exists somewhere. To people in India, I am Piccolo and Oolong and Tenshinhan, but I do not take credit for those characters in any way.
So do you prefer voice acting for video games or anime, and do you have a different approach to them?
They're both different in the sense that with anime you have a finished product, so you can see exactly what it looks like, except for Furikuri, which is an anomaly. So you usually know the character, you can watch the sub, you'd be very familiar with what's going on and know everything about the show. Whereas for video games, they're made piecemeal and in different states, and you're usually getting new scripts every couple of days, and they're still figuring stuff out and translating. So it's a different beast. But they're both fun, depending on what studio you work for. That Cup of Tea I mentioned is one of the best studios to work for. It's run by 2 sisters who are just awesome. Really love games and really good at taking care of actors. And so anytime I get to go to Cup of Tea, I'm like, yes, that's fun.
Anime consumption in the United States has exploded and worldwide due to streaming. Has that affected you personally at all, or has it affected the roles, the jobs that you take at all?
What do you mean, like piracy?
Well, there is piracy and just the amount of also legal Crunchyroll and everything else. Do you find that you get recognized more? Do you find that in the office the job has changed, that the experience changed, the equipment is better, or anything else? Has anything affected you from all of this?
No. Well, so I feel like with recognizability, I think there's a culture in anime of knowing the voice actors that there isn't so much a culture of that in Western animation. Usually you take for granted who's SpongeBob. Like, you don't even know, like, people don't look up who's SpongeBob and Patrick and Homer Simpson are and all that sort of stuff. But in anime, everybody knows everybody's roles. So I think that culture has kind of become the norm in the younger generation, which is nice. As far as things changing, Netflix is kind of the king right now. They're now all union, which is really good. It makes things a lot easier for us as actors. So that's kind of changed who our bosses are. And Netflix is really easy to work for. Everything is just very streamlined and simple with them. So they're kind of the main client in town these days.
All right. So then my next question is, it's a little broad, but you played many roles, but what's been your biggest challenge so far?
Biggest challenge role, I would say Eve from Nier Automata was really hard because we didn't know a lot about him going in, and we kind of figured it out as we went along. And he's a very vocally stressful character, a lot of screaming. So that was a painful 4 hours for me. I lost my voice for a week after that guy. He was tough.
So jumping off that, out of all the characters you've played, which one do you feel has personally defined your acting career?
It's defined my acting career, I guess Noctis. He tells a whole story in one complete game. You get to emote. You get to see all 3 dimensions of him. Whereas for some characters, you see little bits and pieces of their life. So I'd say Noctis for that one.
I'd say, what are you most excited for in the future, in your next roles?
There's one role that's very exciting that maybe we can talk about in March, I think. But I get to play the lead in a very cool game that may have already been announced. And I'm very proud of it. So yeah, coming soon. Yeah. All right. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you for your time.